Let's go into one greenhouse. Everything is already growing there. The frame is made of 40 mm by 80 mm pipe. Winter doesn't look like winter. Summer doesn't look like summer. Polycarbonate. Wow. I'll tell you, it's really hot. We even removed the shade cloth from some greenhouses. The height of the greenhouses, first of all, should be such that it is comfortable for the plants to grow. The larger the volume, the more losses we have. If our greenhouse is 10 meters wide, then a height of 5-6 meters is the maximum. The temperature is about 40 degrees. Due to the shade cloth, we reduced the temperature by 50% inside the greenhouse. This is our watering system. This is our ventilation. Good day, dear friends. We are at another one of our greenhouse construction sites. These greenhouses are located in Chernihiv. We came here to see how our guys did everything. There are already greenhouses that are working. There are still greenhouses that are being built. You can see all this in the process. That is, while some are still being built, others have already started working. The question is how the greenhouses work in general, and in principle. Using one of our greenhouses as an example, we will show what a greenhouse should be like, what it should be like in terms of functionality, what is used there to get a normal climate inside the greenhouse. Let's go into one of the greenhouses. Everything is already growing there. By the way, did you know that Chernihiv was, during the time of Kievan Rus, you could say a competitor of Kiev, and in principle it was even much richer than Kiev, so it is a rather interesting city. We are in one of our greenhouses, and what is located here, and in principle, according to what rules and why this format of the greenhouse was made. I will also answer some questions that we are often asked. The first is what profile the structures are made of. The second is what height the greenhouse should be. The third, what to cover the greenhouse with. We will now try to explain and give an answer to all these questions, because quite a lot of them have accumulated, and I would really like to reveal them. This greenhouse is 4.5 meters high and 10 meters wide. There's an even part. These are the side walls. They are made of 40 mm by 80 mm pipe, and they are load-bearing posts. If we go outside, there is quite a strong wind now, and the question is, what supports are best to make in the greenhouse? There are two types of structures on which greenhouses are placed. This is the pile method, and this is on concrete supports. We try to make concrete supports because the structure is much stiffer than on piles. That is, piles are more mobile than concrete supports. By the way, I would like to hear your opinion. What are the best installation options? On driven piles, when the greenhouse arrives and it is placed on driven piles or geoscrews, or on concrete supports, it is interesting to hear your opinion, because there are a lot of opinions, and as they say, every frog praises its own swamp. If it stands on a concrete support, given that I weigh more than 100 kilograms, the structure is quite difficult to shake. There is a rigid connection with the support. Such a structure is quite resistant to wind and other loads. The supporting post is 1.5 meters high. Due to this, in principle, you can grow a wide variety of plants here, and they have a rather good height for volume. This wall, which is here in the standard configuration, it is 1.5. Well, you can do 2 and 2.5. There are videos. There is a structure that we are now also building in parallel. It is 2.5, so you can play with the height. If we have voluminous tall plants, then the height of the greenhouse matters. Here is the post. And then the truss went. Why do we make trusses? Trusses, if we take them structurally, they withstand various static and dynamic loads quite well. The 40 by 40 pipe is in the form of a truss, and an additional rigging group is added, which is a spacer. The structure must withstand all snow and wind loads. Moreover, there is a reinforced version here. This is the distance between the posts is 2 meters. That is, there are standard 2.5 meters, and 2 meters is already a reinforced version. Its task, given that we constantly, so to speak, live in an unstable climatic situation, that is, winter is not like winter, summer is not like summer, plus strong winds. Yesterday there was a rather strong hurricane that even tore off the shade cloth from some greenhouses. Therefore, the structure must be quite monumental. Square or round pipe, for the manufacture of the greenhouse frame. There are many nuances and many questions here. Everyone likes something different. We started with a round pipe, then switched to a square one and saw our advantages there. In principle, both a round pipe and a square pipe are like engines for cars. There is gasoline and there is diesel, and cars drive. That is, diesel has its own advantages, gasoline has its own advantages. Also round or square pipe. Why did we start using a square pipe? It has a better bearing capacity, also the truss holds loads well, and it is very convenient to install various additional systems and equipment in it. By the way, it is interesting to hear your opinion on which pipe is better, round or square. We lay wires, we lay pipes, that is, all this is very convenient to fasten in a square pipe, because there are grooves, there is space, and if the greenhouse should be functional, and if the task of the greenhouse is that it has equipment for winter, for spring, for summer. Here are stretched ropes for plants to pull them up. There are fogging systems here, and they are installed again in the trusses. Heating and lighting will be installed here. It is convenient to fasten all this to a square pipe. What should be the height of the greenhouse? The height of the greenhouses, first of all, should be such that it is comfortable for the plants to grow. In high greenhouses, a more optimal climate is created, and the greenhouses are more inert, due to the large volume of the greenhouse. Hot air is at the top, warmer in the middle and cool if it is summer at the bottom. If it is winter, then, accordingly, we heat at the bottom, that is, it heats the working area while it goes further, it cools down. In such greenhouses, firstly, plants grow better. Secondly, in such greenhouses the climate is better, they better withstand temperature changes. The disadvantages that arise are, of course, the heating system, which is necessary, well, and the starting cost. The heating system, the larger the volume, the more losses we have. In this case, proportions arise, that is, the greenhouse should not be higher than somewhere 0.5–0.6 of its width. If our greenhouse is 10 meters, then a height of 5–6.5 meters is the maximum. The main task of the greenhouse is to create comfortable conditions for the plant. What does comfortable mean? In the summer, it should be good ventilation, so that the greenhouse is cooler than outside. And in the winter, it is accordingly warmer in the greenhouse than outside, and there would be enough light for the plant to grow well. The frame is directly related to ventilation because in order to make ventilation, it must have good ventilation. Now we have summer, it is quite sunny, but very windy, so we will now measure the temperature. Here one side part is open. Why one? Because from the opposite side there is a very strong wind, so we close that part, this part is open. Due to this, there is good ventilation and air movement. There are vents. A tomato greenhouse generally likes it when there is top ventilation, then the greenhouse does not overheat at all. There is a shade cloth here, that is, when they put the shade, the temperature here dropped sharply. I am measuring where we do not have a shade cloth. We see about 40 degrees here on the ground. Now we have entered the shade, here we already have 29 degrees. If we look at the plants, then they do not overheat, their temperature is 21–23 degrees, although in the sun it is somewhere +30–+35 degrees. The earth heats up to 40 degrees. It is now 31 degrees in the greenhouse, and the light saturation is 33–34,000 lux. Outside there are about 100,000 lux and the temperature is also 31 degrees. The temperature is about the same in the greenhouse as in the room. Due to ventilation, comfortable conditions are created here for plant growth. There is no strong wind here like outside. Our soil is 23 degrees for plants. In principle, if we take photosynthesis, that is, this is almost the optimal temperature of 20–25 degrees, when there is a supply of water. Plants, like all autotrophs, they convert from inorganic substances into organic, due to photosynthesis due to light, water and CO2. Water is taken with the help of the root system and CO2 is absorbed by the green mass. If we have a very high soil temperature, that is, it overheats, then immediately the absorption of moisture by the root system falls normally and this is immediately reflected in photosynthesis. Therefore, for normal photosynthesis, we must have a good flow of air, so that we can normally ensure gas exchange. Because if something is lame somewhere, that is, if there is little CO2, normal photosynthesis is disrupted. If there is no water, normal photosynthesis is disrupted. There is no light, normal photosynthesis is also disrupted. The evolution of plants is happening in principle, given that somewhere starting 30 million years ago, that is, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere began to gradually fall. Even a long time ago, in principle, the level of CO2 was significantly higher than it is now. Even now, so to speak, the industrial era, there were 1,000 and 2,000 ppm, that is, this is the number of particles of carbon dioxide per million particles of air. But in the end, since volcanic activity ended, and the main source of CO2 in the atmosphere is volcanoes, the ocean also gives a fairly large amount of CO2 due to release, but at the same time it also absorbs it. 30 million years ago, somewhere, the fall of CO2 in the atmosphere began. As a result, a revolution occurred in plants and C4 photosynthesis appeared. This is when, due to the stomata, which are located at the bottom, that is, it turns out to capture more CO2, while, as it were, more energy is spent. But due to the fact that these plants are at a higher temperature and where there is more light, in principle, this all leads to the fact that the amount of green mass increases. Plants with C4 photosynthesis win where there is more light, where there is less CO2 than CO3. If you look at the diagram, then in plants with C4 the peak of photosynthesis occurs at 0.4% of CO2 in the atmosphere. C4 is a plant, it is sugarcane, it is the most famous and it has the largest increase in biomass that is in plants. These are plants that are built on the basis of C4 and which won in the race with standard plants that are also all plants with C3 photosynthesis. Until man came and the increase in the amount of CO2 began. Now the level of CO2 is somewhere 0.4% and, in principle, in plants that are based on C3 photosynthesis, their photosynthesis proportionally increases the amount of CO2 in the air and they can calmly increase their photosynthesis indicator somewhere 1000 ppm, that is, 0.1% of CO2 in the atmosphere. What did we get in the end? When we increase the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere annually somewhere by 1 or 2 particles per 1 million, that is, it is constantly growing and as a result, the green mass on the planet increases, that is, the number of green areas on our planet compared to the past has increased by 25–30%. Due to the fact that there is more CO2, the harvest has grown in a temperate climate. Due to the fact that there is more CO2, the yield has become greater. Also, the harvest decreased where it was previously hot. Argentina, Brazil suffer, because those C4 plants that were sharpened to reduce CO2, that is, they do not pull and they lose in competition with ordinary plants, and there are only 5% of C4 plants. By the way, there are no trees in C4 photosynthesis, these are all plants based on C3 photosynthesis. To get the maximum yield, we must have a soil of not high temperature, somewhere plus or minus that is, 22–23 degrees. The temperature in the greenhouse is 31 degrees, the color saturation is 28–30. Due to the 50% shade cloth, we remove half of the solar flux inside the greenhouse. It is twice as dark here as outside, but here this light is enough with the head. When it is cloudy here, there are 15–20,000 lumens, that is, these are generally optimal indicators for normal growth of these plants. The most important thing for plants is to make them a normal climate, and to make a normal climate, you need to build the greenhouse correctly. The greenhouse should be made so that it can calmly withstand all snow and wind and other climatic loads. In principle, we tried to do so. That is, a rigid support with the ground, a good load-bearing structure, the ability to attach various equipment to it, a height so that the plants here are comfortable and good ventilation. These are the main aspects that allow you to grow well in the greenhouse. The rest of the points should be convenient and comfortable for human work. This is our fogging system, this is our watering, this is our ventilation, this is our automation of the greenhouse inflation system. These are the drives that open and close the vents, very convenient, made very reliably. It can also be opened mechanically. I like both options, both mechanical and electrical. In this version, there is an electrical option. It is very convenient to open, close. Moreover, it can be connected to automation with thermoregulators so that the vents open and close automatically. but this parameter of opening and closing should still be controlled by a person because there are winds, there are their own nuances. When we enter the greenhouse, not immediately through the vestibule. Here we can store inventory, we can make a boiler room here, that is, it is very convenient here, you can make a seedling compartment here. Everything, so to speak, for optimal operation and efficiency. Here is a polycarbonate structure, and again we made a symbiosis where a polycarbonate is combined with the film. Here when it rains, such trenches are formed. Here we have side ventilation. There are manual mechanisms that open and close the vents. It is very easy to open and very easy to close. The mechanism is simple and reliable, which allows you to open the vents. Now it is not inflating, but when we close and seal it, a valve is placed and the inflation inflates this side part of the greenhouse. There are limiters so that our side ventilation does not hit the metal frame of the greenhouse. The mosquito net protects against pests and other insects that are not needed there from getting here. The concrete supports here were additionally reinforced. There is a so-called skirt. This part is sprinkled with earth. The film is inflated quite well, which means there should be no folds on it and there should be such a drumbeat. This is how the shade net is fixed. A cable is attached to each limiter. Due to this we have fixed the shade net. It is much cooler in the greenhouse. The ends of the greenhouse are made of polycarbonate. They are much stiffer. It is convenient to make vents, doors. This is all made of polycarbonate. In principle, the ends can be made of film, we just always make them from polycarbonate. Polycarbonate gives rigidity. Secondly, it is more resistant to impacts and to all mechanical damage than film, especially at the ends. Where the doors are, that is, this happens more often, people go, something hits, rubs against it, this causes damage. Polycarbonate gives rigidity, gives stability, and the ends work very well with this option. And there, by the way, is the end that is made of film. It inflates well, but the doors, as we see, are made of polycarbonate. I like these double handles, this is both beautiful and functional. The doors, firstly, will not skew. Due to this we get better bearing capacity, durability and resistance to mechanical damage. The film performs the function of fencing the inner space, therefore there are such options for symbiosis. Greenhouses, so to speak, are very different, but one of the options that I consider has the right to life. I told you about it. With you as Alexander, the company Eco Greenhouse live in harmony with nature and in the rhythm of progress. Until new meetings. Everyone went on to work. Well, what are you filming? I didn't steal. I was treated from the greenhouse.